The night my husband celebrated his promotion, he raised a glass and thanked the woman he called his future wife. I was standing 3 feet away. The room burst into applause. My heart did not. He looked directly at her, not at me. 2 new beginnings, he said, smiling at the blonde woman from his office, and to the woman who truly supported me. Someone laughed, someone cheered. I did not move. I just asked quietly, should I sit down for this part? That was the moment the room started to shift. But to understand why I didn't cry or scream, you need to understand what kind of wife I had been for 10 years. When I met Ethan, he was ambitious and charming. He had big dreams, but very little money. I had a stable accounting job and a small apartment I was proud of. We built everything together, or at least that's what I believed. When he wanted to quit his job and launch a tech startup, I supported him. I covered the bills. I refinanced my car. I used my savings to help with his early expenses. He promised, when this takes off, you'll never have to worry again. The startup failed. I didn't complain. 2 years later, he tried again. A new company, a new vision. I worked longer hours to make sure rent was paid on time. He worked from home most days, saying he needed focus. I cooked, I cleaned, I handled taxes. I handled creditors when payments were late. He handled ideas. Eventually, one idea worked. He was hired by a larger company. Salary, benefits, recognition. That's when everything changed. At first, it was small things. He stayed later at work. He dressed better. He smiled at his phone more often. When I asked about the late nights, he said, "You don't understand corporate life." When I suggested we take a vacation, he said, "Now isn't the time." But he always had time for company dinners. Then I met her. Her name was Leela, marketing director, blonde, polished, confident. At a company barbecue, she hugged my husband a little too long. Her hand stayed on his chest when she laughed. I noticed. He noticed that I noticed, and he rolled his eyes. "Don't embarrass me," he said in the car on the way home. "You're being insecure." I apologized. I regret that more than anything. 6 months later, he told me about the promotion party. "It's important," he said. "High-level executives will be there." "Of course," I replied. "I'll be there." He hesitated. "It's more of a professional setting. You might feel out of place." That was the first time I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Out of place, I asked. "You know what I mean," he said. Different crowd. Different crowd. After 10 years of paying his debts, I was now different. Still, I showed up. Black dress, simple makeup, hair done neatly. When I walked into the ballroom, I saw them immediately. Leela was already at his side. They looked aligned. He kissed her cheek when he arrived. Not the kind of cheek kiss co-workers exchange. The kind that lingers half a second too long. I felt it then. The betrayal wasn't beginning. It had already happened. And then came the speech. He thanked his team, his support system. He didn't mention my name. Not once. Then he looked at Leela, and to the woman who believed in my potential before anyone else did, he said, voice thick with emotion. I felt every eye in the room glance at me. I didn't look away. He continued, "To my future, applause." That's when I spoke. "Future wife?" I asked calmly. The music cut. His face went white. Leela stepped back. "I think you forgot something," I said. "Or someone." The CEO looked confused. Ethan laughed nervously. "She's joking." I wasn't. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a small envelope. Not divorce papers. Not yet. Better. 2 months earlier, I had found messages on his laptop. Explicit. Emotional. Plans to move into a luxury condo. Plans to make things official after the promotion. Plans to slowly push me out without scandal. He had underestimated me. I didn't confront him immediately. I gathered evidence, screenshots, emails, financial transfers. Then I went deeper. Because during those years of supporting him, something else had happened quietly. His first startup had been registered under my name for tax reasons. When he was desperate, he transferred 60% ownership of his second company into a holding structure, one controlled to protect assets from debt. He never transferred it back. He trusted that I would never check, and I never told him. Back at the party, I handed the envelope to the CEO. "I think you should see this before congratulating your executive on his integrity." Inside were the legal documents showing majority ownership. My name, 55% controlling interest in the subsidiary he was being promoted to lead, The CEO's expression changed. Instantly. "What is this?" he asked. I answered calmly. "It means the company technically answers to me." Lila stepped backward. Ethan grabbed the paper. "This is old," he said quickly. "We were going to restructure, but you didn't," I replied. Silence swallowed the room. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shouting. That scared him more. "You're trying to ruin my career," he whispered through clenched teeth. "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself." The CEO cleared his throat. "Need to review this immediately." The promotion applause had evaporated. Guests were suddenly very interested in their champagne glasses. Leela looked at him like she had never seen him before. "Said everything was clean," she murmured, didn't answer. The next morning, he came home furious. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" I was sitting at the kitchen table. "How dare you plan my replacement at your promotion party?" He had no reply to that. He tried threats first. "I'll sue." "You can't," I said. "You signed everything willingly." He tried guilt. "You're overreacting." I opened my laptop and replayed one of his voice messages to Leela. "You're my real partner." His voice echoed. He went quiet. Finally, he tried anger. "You're being vindictive." I stood up slowly. "For 10 years, I built you, I financed you, I defended you, and you planned my exit." He didn't deny it. He just stared. And that told me everything. 3 weeks later, the board completed their review. The promotion was frozen. He remained employed, but under supervision. He no longer controlled the division. I did. Through legal counsel, I initiated restructuring. He was offered a buyout package contingent on non-competition and confidentiality. He signed. He had no leverage. Lila resigned 2 weeks later. Apparently, loyalty fades when stock options do. But the real shock came when I filed for divorce. Not quietly, publicly, with evidence attached. He tried to save face, tried to say it was mutual, but the truth had already traveled through corporate circles. Trust matters in executive positions. He had none left. One evening, months later, he showed up at the house, smaller, quieter. "I made mistakes," he said. "Yes," I replied. "I was under pressure." "I was under pressure too," I said calmly. "I just didn't cheat." He looked around the living room. "Is this really the end?" "It ended when you replaced me in your mind," I answered. He left without another word. The company stabilized. Didn't stay forever. I sold my majority stake at a significant profit once restructuring was complete. I moved cities. Started fresh. Not because I was broken, because I was free. Sometimes people think revenge means destruction. It doesn't. Sometimes revenge means standing still while the truth does the damage. He wanted applause. He got silence. He wanted a future wife. Pete lost the one who built his past. And the night he thanked his future in front of a ballroom full of executives, he didn't realize something simple. Paper beats promises, preparation beats ego. And the quiet woman in the black dress was never out of place. She was the owner.